ever won multiple playoff games in a season with Lamar Jackson? Is it a missing piece, a lack of execution? What is it, Lewis?
Look, to me, really, it's a matter of execution with this football team. Look, there's always pieces that you feel as though you could accentuate what you already have, and maybe that'll be the one piece that'll put you over the top. Maybe if we just had a better player here, it'll put you over the top. But look, Booger and Ryan both know locking in at the most critical moments, especially over the course of 3.5 hours, 4 hours in freezing cold weather like it was up in Buffalo, in this playoff game. It's a hard thing to do. It just seems like Baltimore isn't able to kind of like maintain that kind of focus, maintain the kind of identity that they've established for the previous 17, 18 weeks and carry it over into the playoffs. They somehow get off the tracks and get sideways. Yeah, of course they could use another wide receiver. Sure, they could use another corner in the back end to really help them in man coverage and maybe be a better playmaker. But look, I think this is an execution issue, and they got to find out how to get over the hump that way.
Yeah, I completely concur, Lewis, especially when it comes to the secondary. I think the secondary could be better. They need to make sure they're better on the outside. I like Marlon Humphrey when he's inside playing the nickel and not on the outside. They need another impact player up front. But the bottom line is this, is that when you get in these playoff games, you have to play your best. It's amazing how Baltimore's best players continue to come up the smallest in the biggest games. And I don't know whether that's mindset or whether these players are starting to put too much on it. Even you go back a couple years ago, they didn't run the football. They got away from their identity. So it's not just a player thing, it's a coaching thing also. How come this organization can't just say, you know what, I get it's the playoffs, but let's just go out and continue to play football the way we played all year. It's almost as if they put too much emphasis on the playoffs and it gets into the entire organization's head, not just the players, but the coaches also.
No, absolutely. And I think Kyle Hamilton was on with Mina Kimes, and he said the exact thing. Like, we don't need nothing else. The fact that we continue to get here, the fact that you dominate in the regular season, that you are the kings of the AFC North, you've had the number one seed, you've had the number one defense, you've had the number one offense, but you keep falling short. That's a you issue. That's a you problem. That's an execution problem. That's a making the moment too big problem. And now, no matter what happens throughout the regular season, I believe us on the outside as the media, the fans, the people who watch the game, we understand it doesn't matter until the playoffs. I believe the Baltimore Ravens players have that in their head as well. And when Lamar Jackson throws an early pick or when he drops the football on a Damar Hamlin sack, I think they immediately jump into not again. And you know this, Booger, you know this, Lewis, having played, you can't be in not again mode in the playoffs because that'll have you sitting on your couch watching the next weekend.
Yeah, listen, I pushed back before with this whole we already have everything we need, and it's like, well, if you had everything you needed, then you would have won. And we keep acting like that the coaching is just magically going to get better for the sake of getting better. Why? What evidence do we have for that? And it has absolutely been execution. Absolutely. And you have all these guys all echoing, execution, execution, execution. But then say the names of the coaches, though, then. Call out the coaches. Demand the Ravens franchise, then make changes. Like, why does Harbaugh then get a pass if everyone is just saying execution, preparation, etc.? I don't understand. And this whole here we go again mentality. Jalen Hurts fumbled in the Super Bowl in 22 and they lost. And then in 24, he threw an interception. And he hadn't thrown an interception. He's thrown he had a couple turnovers in from week 4 on, whatever it was. It was kind of out of control with what he had done in terms of turning the ball over. It was non-existent, and especially in the playoffs. And then he now throws an interception in the Super Bowl. And yet nobody was like, here we go again. Nobody was like, uh-oh, Jalen Hurts, he doesn't normally throw interceptions. Now he is. That's coaching. That's belief. That's preparation. Something that the Baltimore Ravens seem to lack. Somebody has to be blamed. You can't just say somehow the players just come up short. There has to be blame somewhere. Especially when you see bad coaching decisions, bad game planning, bad game management. It just doesn't make sense. Now, do you want to see other players like Lamar Jackson step up more, especially earlier on in the game? For sure. Absolutely. But I continue to be frustrated by the conversations that we have about the Baltimore Ravens, what they can achieve, and why they come up short. Because we know full well if this was a different team, if this was the Philadelphia Eagles and they came up short, Nick Sirianni would be absolutely blasted. Blasted. No doubt about it. Mike Tomlin, blasted. I can go the list. Kevin O'Connell. Shanahan. Shanahan's now been to multiple Super Bowls. Gets ripped for not having his team ready in those moments. You know, he took a lot of heat this season, even though his team was decimated with injuries. So I don't understand this protective bubble around Harbaugh because he won a Super Bowl like a decade ago. I don't understand. I really don't. McCarthy got blasted. He fired. McCarthy won a Super Bowl. So it just we saw our kind of like tiptoeing around some of the potential problems. You know, does this Ravens team need a new voice? Do they need a new culture? A new identity? Are we expecting them just to magically get over the hump and finally be ready and play their best ball in the playoffs? Because again, look no further than the Philadelphia Eagles, man. They played their best football in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. That's when you need to play their best ball. And it's just so bizarre because against the Steelers, you can congratulate and say like that's an awesome game plan how they went after the Steelers. They knew what they wanted to do. And then the next game against the against the Buffalo Bills, have that just go completely out the window. And now you're kind of just like, what are they doing? Like we saw what they did in the AFC Championship game where it's like, what are you doing? There's too many moments for the Baltimore Ravens where you question, what are they doing? That's a coaching problem. That's a coaching problem. And it's frustrating to see season after season after season. And it's even more frustrating to see where you're just expecting something to just magically get better for the sake of getting better. Then, right, we're going to have a conversation where like, well, he needs another wide receiver. He needs another. And it's like, that's not the problem. That wasn't the problem this past season, and that wasn't the problem the season before. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's so irritating to see. It really is. It's so irritating to see. And for the life of me, I can't explain it. Why we don't, really drill down to the root of some of these issues with the Baltimore Ravens. I really don't. I really, really don't. And I've talked about it as much as I could. And I guess, well, we got the time for the next few months, especially considering, we'll have to wait and see what other, what decisions they make this off season. How aggressive are they? What exactly do they do? But it's just, I don't know. I mean, we know they're obviously not moving on from Harbaugh now, but it's just like, I don't know, man. Where's the pressure? Where's the feeling of Harbaugh on the hot seat? Like, where's that level of intensity? You never hear anyone, like, throughout this season, no one talked about it. This past season, no one's talked about is Harbaugh on the hot seat. Even when they had a couple tough losses and the season kind of started off a little wonky, nobody was talking about, hey, if the Ravens don't win the Super Bowl this year, if the Ravens don't get to the Super Bowl this year, there's a good chance Harbaugh's gone or something. Like, no one had that conversation. No one. Yet, the 49ers had to answer questions about Shanahan. The Eagles had to answer questions about Sirianni. Like, it's, the Steelers had to ask questions about Mike Tomlin. And again, when you say that you're the king of the AFC North, it's kind of like, okay, great. The Bengals are terribly run. Terribly run. The Pittsburgh Steelers do not have a quarterback. They haven't had a quarterback for like a decade. You better beat them. And the Cleveland Browns are also terribly run, giving Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $200 million contract. So being the king of the AFC North is really not that great. Just like it's not that great for having the Kansas City Chiefs to keep winning their division and the Buffalo Bills to keep winning their division. You're taking advantage of poorly run teams. It's not a mark of how great you are. It's a mark of how stable you are, which is awesome. But that's not the objective. That's not the goal. The standards have to be higher. You have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. You have someone who should be a legend in the making. Lamar Jackson should be a mythological creature that people just cannot get enough of. But they keep coming up short. It's kind of insane. They haven't been able to win multiple playoff games in the same run? Like, huh? And I know Lamar Jackson takes a lot of heat for that. And he deserves some heat, but not all the heat and not majority of the heat. It's just irritating. And this is where it's like I kind of get hit in the face with, like, you know, I've already had now a handful of moments where I'm just like, man, we're going to have to kind of really keep talking about this for the next few months because nothing is going to change right now. It's the off season. And it's just like this conversation that we're having right now, we could have easily had in, you know, January 20, whatever, you know, whatever their season ended. And now we're having it after, you know, a couple weeks after the Super Bowl. Like, it's just until there's like real change. And I pushed back this past season, when Lamar Jackson played great in the regular season and they had a big win and everyone was like, well, it's about the playoffs. And I was like, well, that's kind of not fair. We can't keep doing that every single game or every great Lamar Jackson performance, etc., etc. But now it does feel fair. Now it's like, you know, the Baltimore Ravens can start 6-0, beating the Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Lions, you know, a couple other teams, beating each team by 20. And you would still not be able to really get too excited about it. You would be like, wow, this is crazy. I've never really seen a team start off like this. But you would still be in the back of your mind, well, let's just wait until playoffs. Let's just see. You would say, okay, I think they're going to have home field advantage. And then they're on their track to having the bye, which is nice. And then you'll start doing the math and being like, okay, well, who are they going to play in the divisional round? Is it going to be the Bills? Is it going to be the Chiefs? Is it going to be some random bad team? Like, you know, who knows? But you're still going to be in the back of your mind, I don't know. And then even in that divisional round, even if they blow out some team, if they're going to play the Bills or the Chiefs in the conference championship game, you're still going to be like, I don't know, man. I kind of just got to wait and see. That's the mark of a poor execution, of a poor history of being poorly run. That should not be a variable of a defining characteristic of the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens should be the team in the franchise with the weapons, with the quarterbacks, with the coach, where you say, oh, it's the playoffs. You know this team's going to get after. Oh, you know this team gets physical in the playoffs. You know any team that has to face Baltimore in the playoffs, man, they're going to have some angst because they're about to get bullied. Well, you know Harbaugh is going to have that team ready. Well, we know Lamar is definitely going to at least go for over 200 passing and at least 50 rushing. We should be saying some of these like guarantees. But we don't. We have like no actual guarantees. And at this point, to me, it feels indefensible. And it's frustrating. Because I genuinely feel like we're being robbed. Who doesn't want to see Lamar Jackson in a Super Bowl? We're even being robbed of great AFC championship battles. In 23 against the Kansas City Chiefs, that was not a great battle. That was one of the most boring games I've ever watched. And every single offensive drive for the Ravens, I was just like, I'm uncomfortable watching this. I'm uncomfortable with the island that they're leaving Lamar Jackson on. And then in this playoff game against the Bills, when it was about to be exciting, and you're like, whoa, this is about to be Lamar Jackson's like biggest moment of his career. Like, he's about to lead this team. Nope. The team around him just fails him. And then they just want to say, yeah, but he fumbled and threw an interception earlier on the game. It's like, yeah, then he was leading this team to an awesome comeback, and it was going to be like a crowning achievement for him. And you all dropped the ball, literally. That's on you guys now. I don't know. I wish I could get some more optimism around the Baltimore Ravens team. This team just frustrates me so much. And I don't have the optimism. Again, to be very clear, I don't have the doubt either. I'm not doubting the Ravens. There's a difference. You know, if they're winning all these games and they're, you know, another top seed going into the playoffs next year, I'm not going to be like, well, you know, let's wait until the playoffs because I'm not expecting them to be able to win. Like, I'm not taking that angle either, to be very clear about that. But I also don't have the optimism and the excitement and the confidence things are going to be different. I had that going into this year. I got burned because I was like, oh yeah, I think the Ravens are going to come out. They're going to be on fire. They're going to elevate. They're going to be ready. They learned from their mistakes in 23. They got to be angry. They got to be ready. Let's go. Nope. Same story. Different chapter. It's like, okay. So, I don't know. It's, I am fascinated to see what this team continues to do, how they continue to evolve. I don't know if there's no other gear for Lamar Jackson to get to. It's the team around him now that needs to find that next gear. The coaching needs to find that next gear. There's only so much more for Lamar Jackson to do, quite frankly. And the rest is up to the Baltimore Ravens. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Baltimore Ravens? You know, where's your level of confidence in them right now and optimism at this point in February? You know, pretty. We've got a long off season ahead of us. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.